It's winter time, and this is the time of year when I prune most of our dormant trees for healthy fruit production. But there's another very important consideration anytime you're pruning any fruit tree, and that is preventing the spread of disease. So even though in winter my focus is production, my priority is always disease prevention. I'm Kyle from Urban Farmstead, and today I'm going to show you some of the best ways to prevent disease in your fruit trees through pruning. Disease prevention in pruning is a lot like food safety in cooking. I could make you the most delicious meal you've ever eaten, but if you go home and get sick, it's not going to be a good meal. And I could prune this tree perfectly, making all the right cuts in all the right places, but if I'm using dirty shears from a tree that had a disease and now this tree has that disease, I'm worse off now than I was before I started. So let's get right into it. Disinfecting your pruning shears is the first and most important step in preventing disease. Isopropyl alcohol is a great general purpose disinfectant, so I use it to wipe down my tools between every plant that I prune. But there are a lot of other options out there, so if you're pruning a plant that has a recognized disease, it's important to know that you're using a disinfectant that's effective on that disease. In addition to keeping them clean, they should also be kept sharp, and I won't spend a lot of time talking about sharpening in this video, but in general, bypass pruners like these have one flat side that should be maintained flat and smooth, and a beveled edge that should be sharpened to its original angle using a sharpening stone. Anytime I need more than just a quick edge, and usually when I'm sharpening larger tools like these loppers, I'll use a vise to hold the tool, and I'll start with a file to take off any large burrs. Then I'll finish the edge with a sharpening stone. Dull blades create ragged cuts that won't heal well, providing opportunities for pests and disease. So always use sharp blades to make clean cuts that will heal more easily. My very first consideration with pruning starts before I even come out here into the garden. It starts with checking the weather. Many plant diseases are actually spread by the rain and are more active in wet conditions, so avoid pruning on rainy days and whenever there's rain in the forecast if possible. Now today we have a beautiful sunny day with nothing but sunshine in the forecast, no rain, so I know it's a great time to prune. Okay, my shears are clean, they're sharp, now it's time to start making some cuts. And I'm gonna start with this cherry tree. No, I'm not, because cherry trees and apricot trees, at least in my area in Northern California, should never be pruned in the wintertime because they're very susceptible to certain diseases that thrive in the wintertime when it's cold, when it's moist. So I never make cuts to my cherry tree, and if I had an apricot tree, I wouldn't prune it either while it's dormant in the wintertime. I'll make those cuts in summer. Let's move on to a different tree. All right, I'm here at the nectarine tree now, and I'm up on my ladder, and I'm seeing that I really don't have a whole lot to cut. But there's one thing I always start with, and that is looking for any dead wood and removing it. So I've got a stick here. I'm just going to remove it just past the part that started to die. So if I see that there's still some dead wood there, I can cut it a little bit further back. That's the case here, so I'm actually going to have to cut off this whole live branch just to get rid of all that dead wood. And that's really important because dead wood is going to be the area that pests and disease are going to attack first. Anytime you prune a plant, you create a wound that makes that plant vulnerable to pest and disease. But with proper pruning techniques, these wounds are minimized, and plants are able to heal quickly without becoming infected. Whenever you're removing an entire branch of any size, that cut should be made as close to the base or collar of the branch as possible, without cutting into the collar. Cutting too far from the collar will create a stop that won't properly heal, while cutting into the collar will create a larger wound that will take longer to heal. The collar is this swollen section at the base of the branch. In general, heading and thinning cuts should be made at a slight angle about a 1/4 inch past an outward facing bud or leaf node. Here's an example of what can happen when a cut is made too far past a leaf node. The cut did encourage these two new branches to sprout, but it cut off sap flow to the stop, which eventually died back. And here's an example of what can happen when a cut is made too close to a leaf node, causing it to dry out and again die back and create a stop. So take the time to make your cuts at a slight angle, about a 1/4 inch past that outward facing bud. When cutting to remove dead or diseased wood, look closely at the cut to be sure that it's removed completely. With dead wood, I like to cut off as little as possible, then continue to cut it back if necessary. But with diseased wood, it may be impossible to tell exactly how far into the branch that disease has traveled. so it's often recommended to remove 12 inches beyond the visual indicators of that disease. Using the right tool for the job is about more than just being efficient, and in the case of pruning, it's about not creating more damage to the tree. I know that in most cases I can cut branches up to about 1 inch in diameter with these snips, but anytime I'm feeling a lot of resistance, I know it's time to move on to my larger loppers. Clearly the loppers cut through this branch much more easily, but what's more important to note is the damage that was done by my hand pruners when I forced them to make a cut that was more appropriate for my loppers. Branches like this that are crossing or rubbing on each other should be separated. It's one thing that they're crowding each other, but it's even worse that over time that continuous rubbing is creating an open wound that the plant is constantly trying to heal. Of course, there are tons of different methods and techniques for pruning different trees depending on their time of year, their variety, their age, and a lot of other factors. But one general rule for pruning any fruit tree is that you want to maintain good airflow and sunlight. Not only will that help to ripen larger, sweeter, healthier fruit, but it'll also contribute to the general health of the tree by making it less vulnerable to pests and fungus and disease. When you're finished pruning plants that could be infected with a disease, collect all of the clippings and dispose of them. Don't put them in your compost, don't put them in your yard waste, just get rid of them. You don't want any of that disease material sticking around your garden. And the last thing I'll do is sterilize my pruners one more time, because next time I need to make one quick cut in the garden, I might forget to sterilize them. So I might as well do it while it's fresh on my mind. So when you go to prune your fruit trees this season, don't make disease prevention an afterthought. Make it a priority, because that perfect wine glass scaffold on your peach tree is only good if that tree's healthy. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like it, hit subscribe below. I'm going to go prune some more fruit trees. We'll see you guys later.